you for being here. I promise it's going to be worth your while. Abjit, if you don't mind keeping an eye on the chat window for any questions that people may have, we're going to save Q&A to the end. However, Abjit, if you see a question in chat that is very relevant to something I'm doing, please interject and let me know. I'd like to hear it at that time.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you so much. And sorry for the technical hiccup of me forgetting to unmute. It's like I've never done this before. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the simplest, super duper fast makeover tip. And it involves when you have a situation where your slides are shifting around, where you go from slide to slide and things are moving all about. What is the fastest way we can make this over? And it's super easy. So I'm going to select my slides in my side view. I'm going to select my slides that I want to make over. And I'm going to go to my layout button on my home tab. And I'm simply going to choose one of my layouts. I'm going to choose one of my layouts. When I do that, then when I go to my slideshow mode, the slides don't shift around. So they went from shifting all around to being weird to now being formatted properly. And that is a very quick way to make over your slides. But sometimes, I don't know if you're like me, sometimes when I do that, it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work. What do you do? So here's an example. So you have your slide and it doesn't look good. So you say, hey, Mike told me to go to the layout window and choose one of my layouts, and I apply it. But it didn't work. The very simple reason why it didn't work is because these are text boxes right here, and these right here in your template are called placeholders. PowerPoint doesn't understand that you want your text boxes to go into the placeholders. So what you want to do is you simply click on the text that is not in the placeholder, and you would paste it into the placeholder. And you would do the same thing for all of your content. Place it into the corresponding placeholder. When you do that, what you're going to get is a slide deck that's formatted or made over pretty darn quick. So I was able to do that pretty quick because I use that layout technique. So you go to home, layout, and you're good to go. The same is true for tables. So let's say you have a table. What I'm going to do is, this is the terrible table. This is an ugly table. I'm going to go to table design, and I'm going to click on one of my table styles. Click on one of my table styles, and then I'm almost there. I'm almost finished. I'm going to select my header text, and I'm going to go to my home tab. I'm going to make sure all the fonts are the same size, 18 point. I'm going to make sure that they're all aligned to the middle. I'm going to make sure that they're all centered. I'm going to do the same thing for my body text, select it all, make sure it's all the same font size, make sure it's aligned to the middle, to the center, whichever it is I want to do. And then boom, I went from a hideous table to a professional table. I did a makeover in a matter of maybe 45 seconds. So that is a way to do it. The next makeover tip that I have for you is quite simple. Actually, it's to have better pictures. That is a big issue in my world. By the way, I'm going to tell you where I'm getting my imagery from throughout the entire presentation. So this is an example of a slide that I've received in the past, and the quality of the picture is basically devaluing my content. It's minimizing the perceived quality of my content and my professionalism. But if I were to change the picture to something that is higher resolution or higher quality, the perception is that my content is of higher quality and I am perceived as being more professional. Again, I will share with you where I get my images, what tools I prefer. I'm going to be sharing with you 4 of my professional tools that I really, really like to use. Here are the first 2. The first 2 are called Pexels and Pixabay. Pexels and Pixabay are amazing. They are both free. They are at no cost to you, and they are royalty free, which means you don't have to worry about copyright infringement. So if I go to Pexels.com, and let me do this, I'm going to copy this, see if I can paste this into the chat window. Paste this in there. Here's Pexels for everyone. And the next one is Pixabay, Pixabay. So that's in your chat window if you want to open that up. So what I have here is if I go to my browser in pexels.com, I can search for things like IT services. So I can type in IT services, and now I get a bunch of images or I can get videos. So they also have videos from which to choose. So I can choose photos or videos. The next one is called Pixabay, and Pixabay is the same thing, but they also have what's called vector-based images. And I'm not a big fan of their vector images, so I'm not going to explain exactly what that is. Just know that they offer music and also vector-based images. So now I'm going to type in IT services, and I get a whole bunch of different types of graphics. My preference is usually Pexels first, but I have found some amazing content on Pixabay, and it is free. And it's very, 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 very rare to find something that is free and is of value. So that has been my experience. So those are my first of the 4 pro tools that I'm going to be sharing with you. The next one is bleed your pictures. You may not know what that means. It's a super fast thing to do. So what we would do is we would take a standard PowerPoint slide. This is a standard PowerPoint slide. And by the way, everything I'm sharing with you will work on Google Slides or Keynote or Prezi as far as the concept, the theory, the practice. Just I'm using PowerPoint because it is the most ubiquitous presentation tool. The last statistic I heard was that 98% of presentations were done via PowerPoint. So therefore, I'm going to focus on PowerPoint. So this is the typical slide. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scale my photograph or image up, and I'm going to chunk my bullets so that they're not typical bullets. So when I do that, it will be an instant makeover. So all I'm going to do is just scale or bleed my image up to the very edges of my slide. So I went from your typical boring ho-hum, been there, done that slide, to a very powerful professional slide with just scaling the image up and getting rid of those bullets. Now you can move the image around on your slide. You can bleed it to the right. You can bleed it to the left. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No matter what you do, it works. Now, some people say, hey, Mike, that's awesome, but my brand standards don't allow me to put pictures right up to the edge of every 4 points on my slide. That's okay. You can bleed it to the edge and have white space at the top and bottom. That works perfectly fine. Or you can scale it to the far left and far right. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure you don't distort your image. Just make sure you hold down the shift key. Hold down the shift key when you scale your image. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when you have an image, make sure you hold down the shift key when you scale it, because if you don't, and make sure you scale it from a corner, because if you don't, then you distort the image, and we do not want to distort the image. So we would scale it up. Let me scale this down so you can see it. So we would scale it up, and then we would crop it under picture format, crop, and then I would bring it up to whatever I need to bring it up to. So you would, again, scale it by holding down the shift key and then crop the image accordingly. You can also use this as maybe a title slide, or maybe a standalone or introduction slide, so that when people are entering the room or waiting to queue up for your webinar, this is what they're going to see. That is bleeding your pics. That's your makeover tip number 3. Number 4 is avoid bullets. So here's why I'm saying that. Because when someone makes a slide and it looks like this, now don't get me wrong, this is pretty good, but it doesn't look like they did much more than get a template and type into that template. So that tells the casual user, that you didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. and maybe you didn't spend a whole lot of time on the content or the solution or the information you're presenting. Now, that may not be true, but that is a shortcut human beings take when they see slides that look like something they could easily make as well. So if they see that you didn't spend a lot of time on your slides, then they also think you didn't spend a whole lot of time on the content associated with those slides. The brain pays more attention to things that are unique and different. So what I recommend to get rid of the bullets is to put your bullets or put your text inside of the bullets. So put your text inside of the bullets. When you do that, it makes it look like something we haven't seen before. So we are more likely to be engaged and pay attention to it. It looks like you went beyond, I just typed into PowerPoint. It makes it look like you did something else. Looks like we had a question. Did the bullets take care of themselves when Mike bled his pick? What I did, if you ever have, this is a great question. So if you ever have text, so I'm going to put this in here. So let's put some text in. So if I type in lorem, print. Oh, one sec. I will zoom in for you. So here's a cool pro trick. So here we go. I'm going to type in my text. I have some text in here. So what you can do is we're going to make these bullets. What I can do is under Smart Art. So if I go to convert to Smart Art, and I choose one of these options. So I'm going to choose one of these options. I'm going to convert it to Smart Art. What I'm going to do is I'm changing them from bullets and putting them inside of a shape. When I say put your text inside of a bullet, I mean put it inside of a shape. Once I've done that, then I can ungroup this, and I now have my text inside of a shape. So now it's another way to get rid of bullets very easily, because I do not recommend Smart Art. Why? Because people use it all the time. It's overused. It is devaluing your content. So always choose a path that is more unique. Don't always regurgitate what PowerPoint gives you. So again, what you want to do is take your text, place it inside of a shape or an image, and I'll show you a bunch of examples. So here we have it inside of circles. We could have placed them inside of a call-out box. We could put them in squares. If we wanted to, we could drop some images into those squares. I put some images in there. Alternatively, we could simply chunk the bullets, just break them up into horizontal chunks or break them up into vertical chunks. It's basically doing something that isn't as simple as type into PowerPoint, I'm finished. If you do more than that, people think you spent more time on it. The other thing, if we want to be fancy, we could drop it into some gear shapes. If we want to be really fancy, we can make those gear shapes animate. If I have time, I'll show you how to do that. It's really easy, actually. Alternatively, you could put them on sticky notes, the little Post-it notes that you see. Or we could place them on tear sheet images, something like that. Or for fun, we can, if we want to emphasize the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, we would simply make sure that there's more contrast by changing the background color. Or we could switch it out to computer screens. And of course, we can change the color of the computer screen. Now, one of the challenges that I face, is that I've got a lot of content. Looks like we have a question. Abhijit, are you tracking the questions for the end, just to make sure?
Yes, I am doing that. If anything is relevant to the topic you're talking, I will bring them up.
You rock, you rock. It looks like we did get a question about how is this done. Be specific. Tell me exactly what you're talking to, like how is the slide animating or something like that, and then that'll help me. That'll help me. So one of the challenges that we have is that we get a lot of slides. I'm guessing you do too. So one of the pro tools that I've been using is Slidedg. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of Slidedg. Again, I will type this into the chat window right now. Here is Remind me of that at the end, Abhijit. It looks like how are the shapes changing? I'll show people a really cool
Yeah, sure.
technique.
I will take that. Take a note of that.
You rock. You rock. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. So here we go. So let's go to Slidedg. So I go to the website, and you can, I believe you can sign up for free to test it out, see if you like it before you pay for it. But again, if I type in IT services, what it is, it's a tool to manage all of your digital assets, be it slides, which are individual slides, presentations, which is an actual PowerPoint deck, storyboards, which is essentially a set of slides that are on one particular topic, or infographics. And you know what that is, basically a visual that explains or clarifies. So if I type in IT services, it'll find your PowerPoint decks or your slides or whatever you need. I think I'm on slides now. Let's do this. Yeah, I'm on slides. If I change it to presentations, it would find all the presentations that have to deal with that. So it'll find them very easily. The cool thing is the way the tool works is when you upload your content, it automatically meta tags, puts those keywords in there. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time managing all the keywording, because that's usually, when it comes to a digital asset management system, that meta tagging, those keywords and key phrases become critical to making the tool worth your while. And the way Slidedg works, its edge is that it does it for you. So if we go back, let me go back to the main presentation. The other cool thing that I love about Slidedg is, let's say I'm looking at one of my decks and I can click on Add to Studio. If I click Add to Studio, it allows me to open into what's called Studio View, which allows me to modify. So I can move the slides around any way that I want. I can view a thumbnail view. I can grab other assets that I have and bring them over, drag and drop. It makes it very easy to work with my deck, especially if I'm working in a group setting. It makes it very easy to manage. I can rename it. I can download the file. I can save the file. You can also upload your content and, of course, have add content that you can instantly search. So here's where I would add my content and do whatever I want. And once I added a visual, I can then go back to my main view and type in, let's say, conveyor belts. I type in conveyor belt, and then it should find the one I just uploaded by searching. Yep, sure it does. It sure does. So that word was just automatically created by metadata. So this is a great way to manage a lot of content. And if you're like me, over time, you build up a lot of content. All right, let me keep going. Let's go back here. So the first pro tool was Pexels. The next one was Pixabay. The third one is Slidedg. Next makeover tip, realigning, redistributing, or fixed scaling. What do I mean by that? If you have one of the techniques a pro designer or PowerPoint specialist would use is to make sure that we adhere to a grid, that there's an invisible grid behind our content. So what we see on our screen now is not good. It is not professional. Instead, if we aligned it to a grid, it would look much more professional. So in PowerPoint, one of the techniques you would use is to use the grids or guides. What do I mean by that? Is you go to view, you can view your guides. This works on Windows or Mac. It doesn't matter. You can move your guides around, modify them in any way that you want so that you can build this kind of structure or boundary for your content. Don't leave that. Align to that, and your content will look more professional. Another trick, another technique that I use is you would select. So let's say you have a bunch of boxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, let's say, element 3, and I'm going to go to view, let's see, view, or shape format, and I'm going to look at the size. So the size, the height of that box is 2.55 inches. So 2.55 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these boxes, and I'm going to make them all 2.55 inches. Now, I know that some of you aren't using inches. Just rest assured, centimeters, whatever you choose will work. So now that I've made them all the same height and width, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to align, and I'm going to do align middle. So now they're aligned to the middle. imagine there's an invisible grid and we're aligning everything. The next thing we're going to do is do align, distribute horizontally. Once I do that, I now have a much, much, much more professional looking slide in relatively no time. So I did a makeover in a matter of maybe 60 seconds. I did that. So again, use those invisible guides or grid, align, make sure that everything's evenly sized, evenly distributed, and instantly you have a much better looking presentation. Here we see that the ovals or the circles are not perfect circles. They look kind of distorted. We've got different fonts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the bullets. I'm going to make sure that my circles are the same height and width by going under my format or shape format tab and making sure that the height and the width are exactly the same. And I'm going to make it one font. I'm not going to have a whole bunch of different fonts. When I make those changes, the quality of my slide is made over in relatively no time. So I'm able to take a slide that's not very good, make it very, very good, very easily. The next makeover tip is going to be, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep. Good. I love these questions. Thank you. The next makeover tip is loosely called Maxi Type. When I say Maxi Type, there is a new style, and it's not that new, but it's a style of creating your decks that maximizes or uses type as a key design component. So this would be a typical slide. It's again it's using bullets, so I'm not going to necessarily pay a lot of attention to it. But what's the most important thing on this slide? I'm thinking its adoption rates rise 96%. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm going to use Maxi Type to draw this to the audience's attention. I'm going to maximize that type and make sure that becomes the visual focus. It essentially is like a picture or an infographic, but it's just using basic type. So again, I am going to use Maxi Type to take this slide that we did earlier and make it even better. So I'm going to maximize the type, give it some visual interest, some visual hierarchy. It's telling me where I should look, what's the most important word, what words are not as important. So I'm using Maxi Type to do that. Here's another example. I'm going to use Maxi Type to make it more interesting. Again, remember, contrast is king. When I see a slide that looks like, well, I mean, it looks pretty good, but I think I could have typed that text in. When you spend a little extra time formatting the text so that it doesn't look like everybody else's slide deck, draws my attention, it's going to increase my perception of the value of the content and your professionalism. I could augment it if I want to, or here's another example. I could use quotations or augment that Maxi Type with icons or images or something like that. In this instance, I just used some icons of quotes so that we augmented it and made it look different. The next makeover tip is KISS. Keep it simple, silly. When we know this to be true, we all believe and want information to be presented to us in the most clear, compelling, simple way possible that we can understand, recall, and adopt it. That's really what we want. I don't want you to be overly complex. I don't need you to tell me how smart you are. I just want the information to be easy to understand. Oftentimes, when someone creates a slide, they want to show all the research that they did. Look at how much work I did. I did so much work. I want you to see that work. So they show something like this. But that's just data. In our world, in the world that you and I live in, we need data analysis. So let's do the analysis for the audience. So what we would do is first simplify it. Get rid of everything that we don't need. Keep it simple, silly. It still shows that we did a lot of work. Yay, we did a lot of work, but now it isn't as overwhelming. and I need to get to the point. What is the point I'm trying to make? Well, we did a lot of research, and I want you to pay attention to this green line, because this is the most important line up here. And notice in the background, you see all the work we did. The gray lines are still there. Look, we did a lot of research, but I want you to pay attention to this line. Or even better, we could summarize it and say, hey, I've noticed a 39% decrease, which is a good thing. Or we could say overall, if you look at all the data, we've noticed a 28% average decline in our office expenditures, which is a very good thing. Keep up the good work. So the key to it is keep it simple, silly. Keep it as simple as humanly possible and absolutely get to the point. The next makeover tip is adding professional supporting imagery, not clip art. Add professional supporting imagery. So here's an example of what someone did for their own personal project. So they had a presentation and they're teaching people how to do slip knot for knitting. So what they did was, instead of doing what everybody else does, they put their text inside of a shape essentially, and they added or augmented it with photographs of the actual process. So they put the text inside of the bullets, put it inside of a shape, chunked it out. Don't just do typical bullets, and augmented it with visuals. This is another example. Remember this, where we had this really nice slide. We were able to make something that looked like this. We could have augmented this or added icons or symbols to help reinforce our messaging and make it stand out. So you can add these icons or symbols, professional imagery. My fourth pro tool that I'm going to share with you is called Build a Graphic. Now, full disclosure, I did have a hand in making this. Me and my fellow Microsoft PowerPoint MVPs, some of them helped me make this because we couldn't find anything that exists like this in the world. So we were able to create something like this. The way it works is you can either build your graphic from scratch or use pre-built graphics. So I'll demonstrate the first one. Building your graphic from scratch. So I have my text. I'm going to go to my Build a Graphic tab. It's a add-in for PowerPoint. It's $99 a year. That's how much it is. And you can cancel anytime. Doesn't matter. So I can chunk my text, break it up into bite-sized digestible pieces. And if you want to, you can delete unnecessary narrative. If you feel like, hey, I'm going to be saying this, I don't need to include this in my slide. So you would decide on how much text you want, how much text you don't want, and simply move your text so that you can add supporting imagery. So you move your text around so that you can add supporting imagery, and you can format your text. Let's say you want to center the text or get rid of the M dashes or N dashes. And then the next thing that you would do is you would use the tool that automatically analyzes all the keywords and phrases on your slide and gives you a visual representation. So right now we have assess. So if I go to insert graphic and I choose assess, it would give me different visuals that would allow me to support or reinforce my messaging. Now, all the graphics are what's called vector, which simply means that you can scale them up and down without losing quality. I can easily and quickly change the style. So if I want to make it look like a blueprint, I can just click on the outline and make it a white fill. But what I can do now is I can easily flip the image. So I'm going to flip it so she's looking into the graphic, and I'm going to scale it down. And I'm going to co-locate it with the associated text. I would repeat that for each one of these. If I wanted to, I could add a circle in the background. So in PowerPoint, things are in the foreground or background. I would simply choose send to back, place it behind each one of these images. If I want to add an arrow showing that it's a process. Oh, by the way, here's a little trick. So this is an old school arrow because I just drew it and it just looks like every other arrow you've ever seen. But if I grab the reshape node and I drag it up, I have a new school arrow. So by making tiny changes, it says I spent extra time developing this content. So I think I want you to see more value in it than what I would do if I just threw a bulleted slide at you. So I spent more time on it, on the slide. So therefore I must have spent more time on the content. So I'm going to create my new school arrow to show that and this is up to you. You don't have to do this, and just repeat that. Once I do that, I can change the fonts. I can change the background. I can insert it into a PowerPoint deck. It's completely up to you. You've got pieces and parts like road graphics. You need to make road graphics. You can use this to make them. Pipe graphics, you got the pieces, you put them together. And then because it's vector-based, you can change the style. You can change the color. You can change whatever you want. The last thing I'll show you is you have pre-built graphics. Take the same example. What we're going to do under the Build a Graphic tab is choose Insert Graphic, and I'm going to go to 7 because it's 7 steps. So I'm going to look for something that shows growth over 7 steps. And I'm going to go to, I like this one. Now, one of the things people ask me is they said, there's so many options. What do I choose? Whatever you choose is better than a slide of text. So you're fine. Play around with it, find what works for you. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the content from the slide and place it into the associated step until I have something that looks like this. And then from that, I can then add it into my PowerPoint deck, copy and paste it into my Word document, whatever I want to do. So you have a ton of images from or styles and images from which to choose. You've got, if you're in bids and proposals, you've got risk matrices, you've got DevSecOps. If you're in that world, you've got Agile and Scrum development, or you've got funnel graphics and let me zoom out a little bit. And of course, you've got more traditional things like you've got org charts and tree diagrams, whole bunch of choices. So that is my 4th pro tool. So number 1 is Pexels. Number 2 is Pixabay. Number 3 is Slidedg. And number 4, I'll type it into chat in a moment. So let me close this out. I should suspend. Let's keep rolling. All right, so I'll put this into the chat window so you have it. Done. All right. So that was my 4th pro tool that I'm going to recommend today. Those are tools that I've been using. So let's take what we've learned so far. This is not a good slide. It's on the right track, but it's not a good slide. So let's use professional graphics to make it over. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chunk the text, break it up, basically put my text inside of bullets. All it means is chunk the text, put it inside of a shape, or break it out. Don't just use a bulleted slide. I'm going to augment that with a visual that reinforces that we first discover, then we design, then we deliver. Or I could have easily just used Build a Graphic to come up with an isometric graphic that reinforces the content. It literally tries to visualize or show each step in the process. So we went from a typical boring bulleted slide to something that's very professional in minutes. We did a makeover in minutes. Or I could use Pexels to drop in some imagery if I want to, a photograph if I want to. Either way, we are doing a slide makeover that looks like we have spent a lot of time and money on it, when really we just bought a few tools. That's it. Here's another example. This is going in the right direction. It's not there yet. Right now, the icons and the symbols are inconsistent. We have unnecessary graphic embellishment. So if I cleaned them up and had consistently styled and colored icons, it's going to make it look more professional. Or I could have taken it one step further and used something like Build a Graphic to turn it into a graphic. So I would simply copy and paste my content. I would find my image and then modify it as I see fit. So that way we did a very quick makeover from scratch. I will also show you how to make these graphics without investing in Pexels, Pixabay, Build a Graphic, but Slidedg is going to be great for organizing your content. So this is a typical slide. I'm going to make it over, by doing all the techniques that I have shared so far. Typical slide, not good. I'm going to throw that away.
Mike, just like to interrupt over here. There's a question from Faz. Actually, the two questions from Faz before we show it. Possibly we can take that up. So the first question of Faz was related to how are the shapes changing, which is he's asking related that. And the second question he is asking about is how do we use the Maxi Type? So maybe you would like to take that.
Absolutely. So the first, Faz, thank you for asking me that. So how are the shapes changing? So in PowerPoint, there's something called morph. So from each slide, the way morph works is whatever is different on the slide, it will automatically animate. So if I have two slides, one slide has a square, the next slide has the same square, but then I modify that square. So I'm going to make it bigger. I am going to change the color of the square. I'm going to move it over here. So when I have the first slide is the square, the second slide is the modified square. Under transitions, if I choose morph, it will automatically animate the difference between the first slide and the second slide. Now, Faz asked, how are you changing the shapes? That's way number one. Way number two is what happens if you have two slides, but the shape actually changes to another shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a oval or a circle. And what I want to do is I want to convert the rectangle into an oval. If I use the transition morph, it doesn't work. It just does a fade. So what I would need to do, and this is a pro tip, is under my home tab, I would go to selection pane. And in selection pane, I'm going to go to my first object. I'm going to rename it exclamation point, also called bang bang if you're a coder, exclamation point, any name. So I'm going to call it shape, exclamation point, shape. I just called the square, renamed it exclamation point, shape. I go to the circle and under my selection pane, I do the same thing. I change it to the same name. It's tricking PowerPoint into thinking they're one object, they're the same object. So now if I go to my slideshow and I use morph, I'm going to go back to morph, transitions, morph. If I go to morph, it will absolutely animate the difference. It'll animate between the two shapes. The next question was, how do I use Maxi Type? Maxi Type is basically formatting your text so that it draws interest. So if I have text like this, what I would do is I would start by highlighting or bolding or making the most important text stand out. So instead, I will make it bold. I will capitalize it. So this, what you're seeing on your screen right now, quality levels just became Maxi Type. Another way to do Maxi Type is by simply changing things around. So let's go back to, let's create something like this. So let's say this is your text. So this is my slide title. So we have a slide title and we are going to make it big. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to draw interest to a particular element. Let's say the word title, let's say it's about making graphics. And I want to draw a little more interest to making. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bold it and I'm going to increase the size of it. So now I'm using Maxi Type. So what I'm doing is I'm not just using the standard, just type your text in. No, instead, I'm formatting the text to draw your interest to key elements and making them, for lack of a better word, visuals in your slide. So that's exactly how you do Maxi Type. Keep rolling. So this is a bad slide. We're going to make it over using all the techniques we've learned. So keep it simple, silly. Put your text inside of bullets. Basically, chunk your text. Don't use bullets. So now I'm going to say your role as a yes user is as easy as 1, 2, 3. You connect, you capture, and you report. So I did a big makeover in relatively no time because I'm using some of the resources. So here's another example. Let me get rid of this because I just did this to you. Oh, here we go. So I have my text. I'm going to be, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the bullets, chunk it. And I'm going to edit down my text because I don't need all that text up there if I'm going to be speaking to it. Then what I'm going to do is use Maxi Type to draw your attention to key elements in each one of those callouts or chunks. Then I can, if I want to, number them. Maybe I want to refer to them as in number 5 or as in number 3, or I could use icons or symbols to reinforce the meaning of the content. So I'm using icons or symbols to reinforce it. Tip number 9 is to show it instead of just using text. So a pro tool, of course, that, oh, there's a 4th one. This is free. Let me put this in your downloads. I lied, there's a 5th one because I love you. Let me type this into everyone. Here is the link to download it. Make sure the link works. It's a secure website, so just go type it into your browser. But it is a way for you to turn your text into a graphic. So essentially, once you figure out what your messaging is, either hierarchy, process, synergy, relationship, you could choose one of these graphic types. And there are hundreds of examples of these to give you ideas. Now, they aren't the finished graphics. They're just to give you ideas, kind of a cheat sheet. But I would take that cheat sheet to help avoid wasting my time creating graphics that don't work and finally getting to the graphic that works. Instead, I'll be able to figure it out ahead of time. So let's use that same graphic cheat sheet to come up with graphics with using build a graphic in this instance. So the first thing I'm going to do is we go from this to this, which you saw earlier. We used Maxi Type. We have the icons, but let's show it instead of saying it. So now what I would do is I could use maybe a step-by-step graphic. That helps me reinforce the idea that it's 6 key success factors. Or maybe we want to use a road metaphor to show that it's a journey from number 1 all the way to number 6. So I'm using my graphic cheat sheet to figure out another way to show my content. Or maybe I want to use a gauge graphic or something like that. In your handouts, Abhijit and we'll be sharing with you the handouts. I'm giving you step-by-step instructions on how to make stuff like what you're seeing. So very quickly, let me do this. Let me show you how you would make something like this from scratch. Let's say you don't want to use Pexels or Pixabay. Let's say you don't want to get build a graphic. How would you do it? Well, this is how you would do it, step by step. So the first thing I'm going to do to build this pyramid graphic, let me close this, is to create a triangle. I would basically insert a triangle in PowerPoint. So insert an isosceles triangle in PowerPoint. It's very easy to make. And then I'm going to insert a rectangle. Insert a rectangle. I am going to click on the isosceles triangle first, and then I'm going to shift click the triangle. I'm going to go to shape format or format, depending upon what version of PowerPoint you have. I'm going to choose merge shapes, fragment, fragment. Once I do that, I have now all those pieces broken up. So I now get rid of the pieces that I don't need. I recolor it as needed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a hexagon. Insert a hexagon. I'm going to duplicate that hexagon until I have something that looks like this. And I'm going to click on the first, shift click the second, and choose shape format, merge shapes, subtract. Now, all this is in your handouts that you will be getting, that Abhijit will make available to you. So if you're saying too fast, Mike, don't worry about it. I'm going to duplicate each one of those until I have my, my spacing. And remember, you can select them all and choose distribute vertically or horizontally until I have something that looks like this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these shapes and copy it so I have it for later. And then I'm going to click on the left side of the triangle, shift click the divider, and I'm going to choose merge shapes, subtract. I'm going to repeat that, copy and paste that. I'm going to paste it again, click on the right side, shift click the divider and choose subtract. I'm going to keep doing that until I have something that looks like this. Then I can right click on my object, choose edit points, and I can delete these points down here. I can delete these extra points. I would do the same thing on the right and then add a diamond in here, diamond shape. I would send that diamond shape to the back. So send to back. And I would repeat that until I have my pyramid. Once I have my pyramid, I can then move it around, add or augment it with stuff, change the background, do whatever I want. So you can build stuff from scratch in PowerPoint if you know how. The final tip, the final makeover tip is to start with the end. Now, this takes a little bit more time, but it's really worth it. If you do something that looks like this, it is bad. So imagine we're giving a sales pitch to a hotel company about our new software. This is not going to work very well. So instead, we're going to start with the end. So I would start by saying, versus ending with the highlights and benefits, I would say, look, I know why we're here. We're here so that you can save money, make your job easier, and do your job faster. Well, our software has 8 ways we make that happen. I can't count. 8 ways we make that happen. Number 1 is it's free to hotels. And remember, all I'm doing is everything we've learned so far. I am using professional imagery. I am putting my text inside of the bullets, chunking my text. So it's free to hotels. That's going to save you money. We have a user-friendly, intuitive interface. That's going to make things easier and faster, and so forth and so on. So then this becomes my agenda. So then I walk my audience through my story. I say, hey, it's free to hotels. What do I mean by that? Well, there's 3 ways we ensure things are always going to be free. Number 1, we have a grant. Number 2, we have a work to learn curriculum. And number 3, we have loyalty programs. And for that reason, we will never charge you for the software. It will always be free. Now, I did mention we have a user-friendly, intuitive interface. Let me show you. So if you look at our software, these things make it easier, and those things make it faster. The same is true for our mobile applications. These things make it easier, and those things make it faster. So we're using this as our agenda. We're using all the principles that we've learned so far. All right, yep, I wrote some books, who cares? So let's take on any questions that we may have, that we have heard, that Abhijit, maybe something popped up, maybe not, that's okay. Any questions so far?
Well, nothing popped up as such, Mike, but yes, if anybody has any questions, you can please type it.
Absolutely. Let's see, a question. Here we go. It reads, is there an easy way to condense images through the presentation versus compressing at one time? Yes. So you can, if you click on an image, you can right click and you can compressing one image at a time. Yes. In PowerPoint, you can compress all your images under your preferences. You can trying to remember where it is on the Mac. I can't remember where it is on the Mac. There is a button to click. Google it. Google or Bing. Use Google or Bing and then look for compression for all slides. Hold on. There's a way to compress all your slides on the Mac. On the PC, let's bring it up on the PC. But you can do it all at once. Thank you. Sorry, Rita. I can't remember off the top of my head. Another way to do it, though, that I recommend is a 5th or 6th tool. It's called NX Powerlight Desktop. Hold on, let me do this. First of all, let me see if I can find it very quickly. Under export. Nope, I don't want to export. Save. I want save. Here we go. Account options. Let's try that. Under options, you should have under save, you should have the ability to compress your images. I think that's where it is. I think that's where it is. And the other tool I wanted to mention was NX Powerlight Desktop. It does a really good job of compressing your file size, because usually PowerPoint files get really, really big. NX Powerlight Desktop, hold on, I'll give you the thing. NX Powerlight Desktop is the best, by far, hands down, tool for compressing file sizes for PowerPoint, PDF, Microsoft Word, Excel files, and so forth. So there's the link. Highly recommend it. There is an online free version. It only works up to 50 megabytes, and I'm not very comfortable sharing my content on the cloud. Not that anybody's going to hack it, but they could. So I don't like to do it that way. It's not, I don't know how secure NX Powerlight's free version of the tool is. I'm guessing it's pretty secure, but for the low cost of, I'm guessing it's 49 bucks or something, it's totally worth it. Any other questions that you may have?
Well, I don't see any other questions, Mike. So I think we are approaching the time. So thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Mike. And just to remind everyone, this is first of the 3 series webinars which we are going to have, which Mike is going to conduct. And with each webinar, you can see the value Mike is going to add to your professional skills in presentation design. And for rest other things, whether it is visual graphics or templates or slides, you can always check back with us at Slidedg.ai. And you can always book a demo with us, and we'll be happy to show around how much value Slidedg.ai, how much time and effort Slidedg.ai can save for you. So with that, we are coming to the end of this webinar. Thank you once again. And before you leave, let me wish you all a very happy Holi. Mike, Holi is one of the very colorful, and to everyone who are joining from the other part of the world, Holi is one of the best and the most colorful festivals of India, and it's starting from tomorrow. So before we leave, our team has put together some Bollywood Holi music together. So please enjoy, and please do come back for the next webinar, which is coming up on 20th of April, and we'll be connecting with you and sending you the messages. Thank you, Mike, once again. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Holi.
Happy Holi, and happy Holi to everyone.